so very excited. Welcome to Be the Hero and Rescue Yourself with Kelly Fuhlman, my podcast and also my YouTube channel, coming out of my house and with a good friend of mine that we are going to talk about fatherlessness and how important it is to have a father in a child's life, whether it is a son or a daughter. I am so excited to have you on board because this is where I get to interview some heroes that I have met in my professional and personal life. So guess what? You are one of among 24 heroes that I have interviewed so far. So congratulations for making the heroes list.
Well, I consider myself honored to be here. Thank you so much. And it's exciting to have the conversation. You know, you're right, Kelly, there is a huge epidemic going on. It's not what most people think. And, you know, in fact, they look at the election, they look at the social unrest and injustice that we have today. They look at diabetes or obesity or all those, really trace it all back. Everything that I just described, it comes back to the lack of a father in the home or the lack of an engaged father in the home, which we classify as fatherlessness. And it is the root of a lot of societal ills in America today.
Yep. So tell me, and I always felt like fathers were very important in a life, and mothers are too. And we're not discounting mothers at this moment in time, but we want to talk about how important it is to have that male role model in a home to help a child, daughter or son, understand and learn how the world works. So I know that you created a nonprofit organization to start bringing awareness to fathers and how important they are in their role at being a father. So tell me a little bit about your nonprofit organization and how it all came about.
Yeah, so we started Daddy Saturday and the Daddy Saturday Foundation. I technically say 13 years ago because my daughter's just about to be 13. So that's our established date, although it really picked up steam about 3 years ago. Essentially, 13 years ago, my wife decided to leave teaching and go in to start her own business as an entrepreneur and open a couture bridal boutique in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was in corporate America at the time, ascending that corporate ladder. So traveling a lot during the week, and found myself at home with our first daughter at that time, our daughter Hayden Olivia. And then add 3 boys to the mix every 2 years and 4 kids over the course of, 8 years there. And during that time, I kept climbing that corporate ladder and would find myself alone on those Saturdays after coming off of a long week with my kids all day long to support my wife as she worked in her store. And I just found that I was not having the best days with my kids. I'd been given this immense blessing of all that time on those Saturdays to engage my kids, and I wasn't making the most of it. And, while I was there physically, I wasn't there emotionally a lot of those Saturdays. And so I just reframed the whole thing and said, you know what, I've got a chance to make this epic with my kids. I have a limited time that they're in the home. I want to make these Saturdays something they remember. So we started to just plan these epic adventures, and that is what started Daddy Saturday. And then about 3 years ago, I was asked to give a TED Talk on the fatherlessness epidemic. And that's where I really learned about all the challenges we face in our country. And I recognized that I had a solution. I had something that I'd done in my own home, in my own backyard with my 4 kids that anybody could do as a dad, and that they could be replicated to provide answer to a much bigger problem. So we wrote the book Daddy Saturday as a way to give a field manual for dads as a really practical way to engage your kids, be intentional, and give them the steps to do that. We started to create technology using an Alexa skill to make it really easy on dads to find things to do with their kids on the weekends or during the week. And then we created a community aspect to it by producing Dad Boss, which is a digital course for dads that really lays out the principles around faith, family, fitness, and finance, and how to be a superstar dad in all those areas. And then last but not least, the nonprofit also was churning during that time. And we decided to really focus on 4 populations: the incarcerated, the National Guard, opportunity zones, and then first responders. So firefighters, police, EMT, and really help them with their fatherhood, because so many of them have either fatherlessness as a part of that, like the incarcerated, for example, or they just have really stressful jobs, and it's hard to be an engaged dad when you think about what they go through. And then we also created our international ministry. So we now have Daddy Saturday Kenya established, and we've got fatherhood and a radio program over there being produced and really impacting lives all over Kenya at this point. So that's who we are. That's what we do. And the last thing that I would share real quickly is we've continued to evolve it, because I found that while it's amazing to impact the dads that are in the home, I still have that desired impact the kids' lives who don't have a dad in the home. So addressing those single moms that you talked about, or the moms that don't have a father figure in their kids' lives. So we're launching what's called Kid Boss, and it's going to be the world's largest youth coaching program. So we'll take all these amazing men that come through our Dad Boss program and align them virtually with kids to be their coach and be that father figure in their life. And we're doing intensives here on our farm outside of Nashville, Tennessee as well for the in-person components of the program. So that's what we do. That's the difference, and hoping to impact fatherlessness, not only here in the US, but around the world.
And that's a lot. I mean, that's a whole lot. But talk about when God calls you to do something and you're like, okay, here we go. You asked me to do this. So, go back to your Daddy Saturday. So when you finally said, I need to be in the moment and I need to be emotionally connected, what are some of your funnest Saturdays that you can remember that you put together? So give me a highlight of a handful of those so we can give our listeners a few examples of what you did and why they were so fun and why they were so fun. Because we talk about it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be a big trip. It could just be something small. So talk to us about your top two.
Yeah, so that's our tagline. We say it doesn't have to be expensive, extravagant, or extraordinary to be epic, right? You
Yep.
just can use what you have around the house. It just takes a little bit of creativity and being intentional and planning it out. Probably my two or three favorites. We rented a pickup truck, and I put baby pools in the back of the pickup truck and filled them up with water balloons and water, and drove the kids around the neighborhood. We lived in a really small community at the time where you could safely drive in the back of the truck, like the old days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were throwing water balloons at their friends and having water balloon fights and just slishing and sloshing all over in the back of the pickup truck. And we just have some epic videos and pictures from that time. It was great. And everybody was like, who does that? Who puts their kids in the back of a pickup truck in swimming pools with water balloons? But we did. It was an amazing Daddy Saturday. And then we also did the multiple bubble wrap battles where I'd go to the local home improvement store and I would buy jumbo rolls of bubble wrap and literally wrap my kids up in like sumo suits and create weapons out of bubble wrap. And we had a trampoline, and they would just go to town and battle each other for hours until they were sweaty and miserable in those suits, but had an absolutely great time. And guess what? They were perfectly protected and safe the entire time. So that was also a blast. And we did that multiple times. And then, what's really cool about the platform is that so many people would ask me, they're like, well, what if I don't have Saturdays? And I'm like, you're missing the point. It's not about Saturdays. That was my day. And that's how we created this platform with my kids, but it's about every day of the week, being engaged, whether it's 15 minutes or 5 hours, right? You have that chance to do that with your kids. And so this last weekend on Sunday, I have a new favorite, and we built the world's largest backyard slip and slide at our farm. So it was over 150 feet long, and we had an absolute epic blast on this massive slip and slide down the back of our hill on our farm.
It brings me back to, the times that I was with my dad. My dad was a fireman. He was a fireman for 31 years in my hometown. And so, he would come home with some rough stories. But our moments were going fishing together. So we had a bass boat, and in Beaumont, about 90 miles, you've got a lake, Sam Rayburn. And I remember just waking up at 4:00 in the morning, getting our sandwich and our chips and, and our snacks together, going and stopping at McDonald's, getting a breakfast burrito or breakfast, biscuit. And, we wouldn't catch any fish. So we didn't do a whole lot of catching, but we would fish together and hang out and have our lunch and our chips and then fish the afternoon and then come home. And there's like this little itty bitty Dairy Queen on the way home that we would always get a blizzard at. And that was our weekends when he would have a weekend off, like a Saturday or a Sunday. Or, I've been, on the, gas tank of his Harley Davidson motorcycle. He had a 73 Sportster. He put me on at 2 years old. And, we went riding together for ages until, I was gone and moved to Dallas. And then I finally bought one of my own, called him, and he hauled his motorcycle up to Dallas, and then we got to ride together on the street. And I have pictures. So those memories as a young girl with my father, sure, we took big trips to Disney World and, other places, but those little small moments of camping and going fishing and not very expensive, were some of my most fondest memories. And I still tell him today that those are my most fondest memories. And it's fun to kind of go over those memories with him, especially now because he's, working through Alzheimer's. So we're helping him try to remember all the good stuff. And it's some good stuff with your dad, and it really kind of etches stuff in your mind. But the bubble wrap, man, that sounds like fun. So
Well,
as you
yeah.
started doing these Daddy Saturdays, what kind of changes did you see in yourself and in your kids as you started not just physically being there, but also emotionally being there with your kiddos? What did you see, and
Yeah.
all the changes in you?
I saw a couple of things. I think one is in this mode where sometimes it's like we feel like we have to do something instead of we get to do something. And so there was that mindset where I felt like I had to be with my kids all day and I was sacrificing my golf game or socially doing things with friends or whatever it may be because it was every Saturday I was with my kids. And then that's when I had that lightning bolt moment to say, no, you get to be with your kids. Like this is a blessing, it's a gift, and use this time while you have it because it will be gone at one point. So part of it was a mindset shift. I think the other big thing was I recognized that I was making deposits. And so when I did want to take a off or I did want to go take a guy's trip or do something, my kids were like, sure, dad, go, like have fun. They were supporting me in the process because guess what? I'd made so many deposits over that it was so easy to make a withdrawal and go do something that I really wanted to do. And they were all in on seeing me do that. So it's like, it's a nice little trade-off, right? Then I think the third thing I would say is that with my kids, the lines of communication. So we would do a lot as a group, obviously, on those Saturdays, and it was hard to do one-on-one time. But then I began looking during the week to take them out one-on-one in just little moments. It could be a 15-minute walk the dog around the block, could be going out for ice cream, could be a full-blown daddy-daughter date night or boys' night out with my young boys, whatever it was. We would do those one-on-one moments during the week, and then we'd all be together in the week. And I just noticed that I started to dramatically advance in the ability to have communication and open lines of communications with my kids, even at young ages. And then when something really big did happen, they would come to dad, and not to say that they would isolate mom, but I just built that relationship, that rapport with them because of all that time invested. And they felt super comfortable with that. Now, as my oldest is 13 and our daughter, she is in those pre-teenager, early teenager years, and we're having some amazing conversations, and it's still not easy, but I can say that because I've invested all that time and I've opened up that communication and I've been there and I've been present and I've been engaged, that it makes it a lot easier. And she will eventually open up and we can have those deep conversations. And it's been pivotal in pulling her out of some rough spots in her early teenage years already. And I'm so thankful that I have that investment that we made that allows that to happen at this point.
Oh, that's so huge. The deposits, I think, I talk about this not just with kids, but your husband, your wife, your significant other, and employees too, is making those deposits and filling their bucket, and allowing them to feel like that relationship has been built. So when those hard conversations come about, they know that you have their best interest at heart. They know that you're fully invested in the person they are and the person they want to become, and they know that you're going to be there for them because you have in the past. So many times, the kiddos that come to our impact program, the parents are clueless with what's going on, and they are like, how in the world did you build a relationship with my child in the 2 hours you had them without me? And they tell you their whole entire life story, and I couldn't even get this out. And I was like, it all starts with just accepting who they are and building from that, and owning your responsibility for building that relationship. And then they just start to open up because they trust, and that trust is huge. And especially with dads and daughters, 13-year-old girl, man, the stuff that's flying out in social media land and out at school, and the guy thing, and trying to figure out what kind of woman you're going to be and where you fall within the line of popularity. Oh my gosh, it's just confusing enough. But to be able to go to a dad and say, dad, this boy said this, or why don't the boys date me, or why don't they like me, to have a dad sit down and and, kind of have conversations with a guy's perspective from when y'all were that age. It's huge. I mean, that's just so big. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Oh,
So tell me a little bit
well, thank
about,
you.
go ahead.
No, I was just say thank you, and you use that word congratulations, and I'll never forget this. You're one of those. You're already a special person in my life because when we first met and had a conversation, I told you about my daughter, the 13-year-old, having dyslexia,
Mm-hmm.
and my middle son has it too. But my daughter in particular said congratulations was your first response, and I was like, oh my gosh, no one has ever said congratulations about a learning disorder before. When I brought that up, and I thought that was so powerful. And then you explained the why behind it, right, and how that's going to cause her to be a world changer and to learn things and be able to overcome things in her youth that'll serve her really well in adulthood, that'll give her an edge over other people that don't have that experience. So it is a congratulations, and we do treat it like that, but I never heard anybody put it that way. And I think that that is so critical, and it goes back to the conversation on identity that you mentioned. And a big part of that is helping your kids feel comfortable in who they are, who God created them to be, what their calling is, and helping them identify those things and then fostering it. And the only way you do that is just by being there and being observant. I didn't mention this, but I think that's probably one of the biggest things I gained from those Saturdays is just the sheer amount of time. I mean, 8 to 10 hours with your kids. I was there from the moment they woke up, putting them to bed at night, and everything in between, right? All the meals, all the little things. And those were through the stages when it was like, brand new baby and one in diapers, toddler, and two kids. And it was like nuts half the time. And so I was there for all those stages by myself on those Saturdays, but I learned so much as they've grown, and just being the amount of observation hours, I call it, where I just got to sit back and watch them interact and engage and how they responded to certain things. And I'd pick up so much about my kids' personalities and what makes them unique and what they're attracted to and what works and what doesn't work with each of them. So I think that's another important piece, right? That any parent can learn is just sometimes it's important just to shut your mouth and be there and be present, but just watch and observe your kids, and you'll be amazed at how much you can learn about them through that process.
Agree. They become that type of parent to their kids as well,
That's right.
spending time and opening up the communication. So breaking that cycle. And I talk about breaking that cycle and how important it is to breaking that cycle. So um, going on to your kid boss and then also your dad boss, tell me how you can get into that program. Tell me how you can apply to get into that program, because I know it's limited space on each of them, but I think you're also trying to do some things where you're going to expand to where you can do some online virtual things as well, because I know you've got some plans to try to include as many people as possible. But tell the world how they can get involved and get your book, and how they can get connected so they can get connected to their kiddos.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, so 2021 will be the official launch of Kid Boss. And so the whole premise is own your future. And what that means is it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, if you had a dad, don't have a dad, engaged dad, not engaged dad, it's up to you to be able to own your future. And we're going to give you a platform and a connection to an amazing dad or father figure who can help you own your future and create a different trajectory for the future of your life. And so what we plan to do with that is twofold. One is a intensive that we're going to hold here at our farm outside of Nashville. It's for 3 days, and we're doing 10 of those next year. So one a month. We're taking off December and June. So we'll have 40 kids that can come through that program, and that'll be our quote unquote beta year, if you will, for the program. And then we'll look to expand that after next year. But that's just the most that our family could commit to with 4 kids, and all that we've got going on. We've all agreed to as a family and have committed to do that. So that'll be next year. 40 kids will come through the program in the intensive. And then we're launching the virtual coaching component, which is equally as important. So that's how we can scale this and reach as many kids as possible and really put a dent in fatherlessness. And so if you're an executive and you've got a kid and you've talked to that kid, 100 different times and said it 100 different ways, and they just won't hear it from you, maybe they'll hear it from somebody else. I know I was that way up, and that's one role of Kid Boss, right? You may be an amazing dad, but your kid just needs to hear it from somebody else. Well, great thing to have them is align them with a coach. We can do that. The other is like the kid who has a single mom family. We just had 2 kids come through, biracial background, single mom family, amazing kids. They just needed that father figure to give them that extra push. So they came through the program. We've aligned them with a coach. They now have somebody that is speaking into their life twice a month for an hour at a time, plus intermittent touch points, and really changing the trajectory of their life through those investments and going through our curriculum. So the virtual coaching program will be much more at scale. Our dad bosses that come in are trained in our curriculum, and they will bring on kid bosses that they will then mentor and coach through our program and our process. We just acquired kidboss.com, so we were able to get that. We have dadboss.com, so you can go there now and see the curriculum. And if you want to get more information on it, the easiest thing that I would do is just say, submit a request to info@daddysaturday.com, info@daddysaturday.com, and that'll go straight to me. And then at this point, I can process those. We are getting our systems in place to where you can formally go and submit and apply and go through the process to join. But for now, that's the easiest way to get your information straight to me, and we can take it from there. The book's on Amazon, Daddy Saturday, and then you can find all things at daddysaturday.com that you could ever need in terms of all the tools and resources and tips and everything that we have to offer for the parents that are out there that want to learn more about engaging their kids in an intentional way.
So I always like to ask this question: what are your top 3 things that you always like to tell folks before you leave them? You know, your top 3 things about Daddy Saturday, or about Dad Boss, or about Kid Boss. What are those 3 things?
I would say that the first thing is you got to take care of you before you can take care of anybody else. So I like to say that far more is caught than taught. And what I mean by that is that, you know, far more your kids will ever learn from watching you and observing what you do than you could ever teach them or tell them. And so take care of yourself, right? Eat, sleep, exercise, do the right things in the way that you work, the way that you pursue your faith. I mean, all those things are what rubs off on your kids. So far more is caught than taught. I'd also say that I'm all about being the hero. I think that's an awesome thing. That's the point of your podcast. But I also believe that with kids, it's really important to help them be the hero of their own story by allowing them to experience success and failure on their own and serve as their guide along the way. And in the end, that ends up making you their hero, because you are, as their dad, as their mom, you are their hero and you always will be, right? But there are a lot of kids that don't have that person in their life. So it's important for them to be the hero of their own story, to be able to experience those things, but have someone there to guide them along the way. So focus on being a guide to your kids. And what that also does is allows other guides to come into your kids' lives and teach them things that you may not be able to teach them, or give them experiences around. And if you're willing to let your ego and your pride go, that'll happen for you. And then the last thing I would say is it always comes back to intention. If you are intentional, if you plan it on paper, on purpose, you set out your mission, vision, values, goals for your family, just like you do for your business, and you help your kids do the same thing, you will end up at the end of that trajectory in a completely different point than you could ever ask or imagine, just by doing that one simple thing. And it's so sad that we leave so many of those principles in our business and we don't bring them home to our family. And if you do that and you teach your kids to do it, man, it'll be a world changer for you. One thing in our we're all Christians, and so we do a blessing over our kids, and I feel like it's really important for the father to give his blessing over his children. And so I don't just do it once; I do it like at least once a year, but we do it somewhat frequently. And I will just put my hand and like give my blessing over my kids and just anoint them. And like, man, it is the coolest thing to watch when your kids hear you and see you pray over them or give you their blessing. It's just an amazing, uplifting thing. And it's so many kids never hear "I'm proud of you" from their parents or from their father, especially if that figure is not in their life. So if you can give that to them, it's an amazing gift.
It is. It's really cool to be sitting here in the kitchen and, you know, and my husband come by and hug my dad and say, and hug my husband and say, "I love you, Dad." But that wouldn't happen if it hadn't turned the other way around. Or, you know, the podcast or the trailer business, and watching my son work alongside of us just as hard as my husband and I are doing. And then looking at me and my husband saying, "I'm proud of y'all," or "I'm proud of this," or this is ours. This is our family's business. And it's really, really cool to see. And I just, you know, got a phone call from his teacher just a few minutes ago, so that he got 100 on his quiz. And I sent him a text: "Proud of you, buddy. I just got a call from your math teacher." So it's when you watch your kids grow up and become who you know that they can be, and support them in that, it's huge. So I thank you so much. So again, please tell us the websites where we can find your book, and find everything with Dad Boss, Dad Saturday, Kid Boss. And I will make sure that I have all of the websites in this video and in the description for the podcast as well. But give us that information again.
Sounds good. So you can connect at dadboss.com, daddysaturday.com, soon to be kidboss.com. And you can always find me at Justin Batt on LinkedIn. And those are the best ways to connect with us. It's been such a pleasure, such an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into my podcast, Be the Hero and Rescue Yourself with Kelly Fuhlman. If you enjoyed listening to my podcast or watching this YouTube video, please follow or subscribe to my channel and walk with me through my journey of celebrating my very own heroes and an opportunity to learn the valuable lessons they taught me over the years, which allowed me to gain the courage to wear my very own cape and be the hero of my life. You can also follow me on Instagram at K Fuhlman, that's KFUHLMAN, at Facebook, /K Fuhlman1, or on LinkedIn, Kelly Fuhlman MBA. Also, please leave your comments below because I see feedback as a gift and it will guide me on how to help you gain the courage you need to rescue yourself. Be sweet, y'all. Thanks.